Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wolfson. I've got a great interview lined up today. I'm speaking with Ian Dilick. He does developer relations at World Foundation. In this interview, we're going to be speaking all about World and proof of humanity. We're also going to be going in depth on the orb and how to verify that you are actually a human being. We talk about different use cases, such as the Tinder use case, DocuSign, Zoom, and how we are actually verifying that humans are who they actually say they are. This is a great interview if you're interested in proof of humanity and World Network, so be sure to stay tuned for the entire episode. Before getting started with today's interview, I also want to take the time to remind you guys to smash that like button, hit subscribe, especially if you enjoy the content that you're seeing today. I've got plenty more of that coming your way. Also want to give a big shout out to Chat Room Podcast Studio here on Miami Beach, where I'm filming all of these amazing podcasts in person. So you can check out what they're doing in the show notes. And without further ado, let's get started with today's interview. Hey Ian, how's it going?
Going great. How are you, Rachel?
Doing well. Thank you so much for joining me here in person in Miami.
Glad to be here. It's a little warm, but enjoying it.
It is warm. At least we have the beach.
We do.
Yes, yes. So Ian, before we get started with the questions, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in this sector?
Yeah. So I guess starting today, I do developer relations at World, and a little bit beyond that, wearing a lot of different hats, working on a lot of different parts of the tech stack, and helping a wide range of people understand how our tech works, how it's private, how it's secure, everything like that. Then sort of going back to the beginning, I grew up in a very technical family, always exposed to tech, knew I wanted to start my own company. And I actually dropped out of college working on a hardware startup, building a communication system for self-driving cars. So while that didn't really go super far, it at least sort of helped kickstart my career. I started working in crypto at that point. I had been mining crypto on my own computers for years at that point, and started working at World about 3 years ago. And it's been amazing since.
Wonderful. Okay, for our listeners who may not be familiar with the project, tell us about World.
All right. So at its core, World is building World ID, a protocol that lets you prove that you are a real, unique human online. Right? As AI has gotten more and more powerful and more prevalent, it's become more important than ever to be able to tell that you're dealing with a human online and not a bot. So World ID at its core is designed to solve that problem. At the same time, World is building, this network of real humans on World Chain as well. Right? We've onboarded tens of millions of people to crypto, right? Given them access to this financial tooling and these financial primitives all around the world. So there's sort of a lot of different parts of the system that all come together to sort of bring forward the next generation of what identity and finance means in this globally connected online world.
Interesting. And what is proof of humanity?
So proof of humanity is very specifically proving that this is a human, not which human it is, right? It's just that this is a human. You know that they're unique, but with World ID, you can't tell what other things that human has done with World ID. You can't tell their name or their email or anything like that. It is just a very strong assurance that this is not a bot. This is not someone who's making, 1,000 or 100 or 10 accounts, right? One unique person.
And how are both of those projects tied together?
So they tie together because a lot of sort of financial primitives really benefit from knowing this is a real, unique human, right? I think one great example of this is the integration we have with Morpho, this lending and borrowing on-chain protocol. Using World ID, you actually get higher yield as a depositor for being a real human, right? What we see a lot in DeFi is one person or one fund with a lot of money will go and deposit all of that wherever there's really high yield. and they just take all that yield and then move off to the next place that's got higher yield. But rather than that yield going towards these really big funds, letting real people be the ones who are like benefiting from these financial primitives is really, really meaningful, right? But that's just because they've integrated World ID, right? We're not doing any of the like DeFi parts ourselves. It is strictly that World ID is such a useful primitive for that they've integrated it.
I see. So let's talk about proof of human, because how is that different than identity, right? Like, how can we prove that I am a human being versus just seeing my ID or passport?
Yeah. So this is actually a really tough problem. This is why we had to build the orb, right? The orb is using the pattern of your iris to make sure that you're unique, and using a bunch of machine learning models running locally on the orb to check and make sure it's actually a human, not like a photo of a human or a mannequin head or anything like that. And that's how we let you prove that you're a human without ever needing to learn which human you are, right? There's also the NFC ID credential in World ID, where you can like scan the NFC chip of a passport. That also allows you to prove that you're a human, attested to by a government, right? Which is more accessible for some people, right? They already like have their passport. They wouldn't need to visit an orb, but less than half of the global population has a digitally verifiable government ID. So something like the orb is actually much more sort of universal than a passport.
And we have the orb sitting on the table between us for our listeners who are watching to see what it looks like. Now, with the orb, I've noticed there are locations. Is it just across the United States, or is it globally where you can actually walk into these world shops? I don't know if that's the correct terminology, and use the orb to get that identification?
So we say that you like verify at the orb.
Verify.
There are locations around the world. And in some places, you can actually have an orb like come to you, right? The same way that you like order food on like some delivery service. You only have to visit the orb once to verify, right? All of the data is self-custodied, stored on your phone in your control. We don't store any personal data anywhere, right? The orb isn't something that you need to have at your house. It's just a one-time sort of initial verification, and everything else from there is done with zero-knowledge proofs and data that you control.
So if our listeners are not verified already and they want to be verified, what are those steps? Maybe walk us through the process.
Yeah. So first step is download a World ID compatible app, right? World app is sort of the primary app that gets used for this. Within World app, you can actually like find an orb. You can see the locations closest to you, see what times they're open. And the actual process of verifying at the orb once you are at an orb is super, super quick. You show a QR code to the orb. It opens that sort of communication channel between the orb and your phone. The orb checks to make sure you're a human, captures the images. All of that's transferred to your phone, deleted from the orb. And then the system checks using multi-party computation that your iris actually has a unique pattern and you haven't verified at the orb before, right? It takes like 2 minutes. It's super simple.
Okay, yeah. I mean, and I did it at the Liftoff event in San Francisco, so I am verified now. And I've also noticed it's actually quite interesting when you have the app, there are a number of different things you can do in the app. Can you maybe talk us through that and highlight the thing that you find is the most interesting within the app?
Yeah, like there are a lot of different use cases for World ID, but at Liftoff, we did announce some really, really cool integrations. One of my favorites, it was really fun to like tell my friends about this because it was useful for them, is the integration with Tinder. That expanded to the US very recently, where you can verify with World ID on Tinder, and actually going beyond just a like proof that this is a unique person who's only made one account, hasn't been banned before. It's using a feature of World ID called Deep Face, where an image of your face taken by the orb was stored, again, on your phone. But that's being compared to the images on the Tinder profile. So if you see a Tinder profile with that verified human badge, you know that that is not a catfish. Like that person in those photos is actually the one in control of that account. And if you verify with World ID on Tinder, you get 5 free boosts as well.
Yes, I remember this being explained. It is really cool. What does the proof of human badge look like? Again, it's just, is it the blue?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So for our listeners that might see someone on Tinder with a little blue badge on their profile, that is proof of human.
Exactly.
Okay. But also, how does that work? So you're verified, you have the app, and then it just integrates with Tinder. Is there an extra step that you need to take in order to ensure that your photos have the proof of human badge?
Yeah. So when you're like creating your profile on Tinder, there will be a step where you're taken to World app. You'll take a photo of your face with the phone's camera to, again, verify it's actually that person who's using World ID at that point in time. And it's doing the zero knowledge proof using World ID for within World app that's then verified on the Tinder side. So it does add an extra step, but it just directly takes you to World app, directly takes you back to Tinder. It's super, super smooth.
I wonder how many users on Tinder are using that feature now. It was just announced, correct? Like a month ago?
It just came to the US. It's actually been live in Japan for about a year. And we've seen a lot of people using it. It's been like really driving World ID usage in Japan very meaningfully.
Wow. And then, so my favorite use case that I saw during the event was Zoom. I thought that was really, really cool that, you know, now with AI, right? We're seeing a lot of fake video calls. People might not be who you think they are on the other end of Zoom. But with this integration, you can now have a proof of human badge on your Zoom calls.
Yeah. Do you know how much like money was lost last year from like deep fake enabled fraud?
No, I don't.
Over $1 billion. And that number is over 3 times bigger in 2025 than it was in 2024. This is already a huge problem. It's accelerating super rapidly. And that Zoom integration is an incredibly powerful way to tell that that person you see on that Zoom call is actually sitting in front of the computer on the other side of that call, right? We're super, super excited for this. We're super excited that companies like Van Eck are going to be using this.
DocuSign, right?
DocuSign
is
as well.
using it. There were a number of other companies at Liftoff that announced it.
So like Van Eck is going to be using the Zoom integration.
Okay.
We also now have a World ID integration with DocuSign.
Okay, right.
Right. So for certain like high value contracts, World ID can be this sort of extra factor of authentication that it really is that person who is signing that document and wasn't that like their account got compromised.
So with this, it's very, very interesting. This is actually one of the most fascinating projects I've seen in a while. And I'm not just saying that, I'm fascinated by it. But what challenges are also associated with these elements? You know, we have the proof of human badge on Tinder, but is there a way are there security challenges there? Is there a way to have a fake account have that badge?
No system is absolutely 100% secure, right? But we have taken as many steps as possible to ensure that this is completely private and secure, right? The fact that all of your data is stored on your phone and not in some database somewhere, right? That's really good for security, right? We're not storing any personal data. The level of cryptography we use with multi-party computation, right? We are pushing forward the bleeding edge of what cryptography is doing in production systems in order to ensure that this is like as private and secure as it can possibly be, right? With Deep Face, it's that layer of authentication that it's actually this person using that World ID, rather than like an account that someone else gained access to. World ID v4 also enables like much better recovery of the accounts in case you lose them. So these are things that we are really, really confident that we are like the best in the industry in terms of like security and privacy and reliability of this system.
I see. Okay. Let's shift gears a little bit. There's a lot of crypto natives that listen to this show. So I want to know about the crypto element associated with this project. There's a token. There's right? Okay. What is it called?
WorldCoin.
Okay, WorldCoin. And how is WorldCoin used in the app?
So users who are verified at the order, or in some cases when they're verified with the NFC ID credential, they can claim grants of the WorldCoin token. And one of the other things that was enabled by World ID v4 is like the ability for there to be fees with World ID. Right? These are not enabled yet, but those will be charged in the WorldCoin token for applications that integrate World ID in the future.
I see. Okay. And also, is the token used for, and maybe I'm wrong, but I remember I have the app and I'm verified. And I remember opening some sort of application within the app where it would allow you to make purchases with the World token. Is that, I wanted a hat, for instance. I think it said you could purchase it with that, but I could be wrong. I could be making all of this up.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to like the World Shop.
Okay, the World Shop, yes. That is what I'm referring to.
Same as any other token, like applications are free to use the WorldCoin token for payment, store of value, whatever else, right? But that's up to the application and how they're using the token. You can use the WorldCoin token in the earn feature in World App as well. Lots of mini apps. So these like applications that open up within World App, lots of them use the WorldCoin token for a variety of different things. Right. It's sort of a like widely distributed token within our ecosystem. So that's what it gets used for.
How would you even obtain, is this something you can get on an exchange, a crypto exchange? How do you get the WorldCoin token?
Yeah, you can buy the token on exchanges.
Oh, you can? Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Wonderful. It's a very broad project. What are you most interested in when it comes to everything that we've been talking about?
I am a huge fan of like the newly launched integrations around World ID, right? Having been with the project for 3 years now, the very first thing I built with World ID to familiarize myself with it was an integration that would let you like gate discounts on a Shopify store behind World ID. And seeing that go from like something I built in a weekend and it looked really bad because this was before like vibe coding was really a thing. Like going from that being an idea to now like something that we actually have as like an app in the Shopify app store that stores can use is really, really cool. And seeing as we've grown and scaled and matured, having more and more of these like enterprise tier integrations is incredible to see. And we've gotten a lot of like super interesting ideas for other integrations we can launch after we've announced like Zoom and DocuSign and Tinder, right? Because 3 years ago, this whole like, AI, all these bots on the internet, there were a lot of people who sort of knew that that was going to be a problem, but it wasn't, I would say, a consensus opinion that like, this is going to be something everyone has to like think about and account for and find a way to solve. But especially after like OpenClaw, I think everyone now sees that like there's only going to be more and more agentic activity on the internet. So everyone's thinking about how they can make sure that humans are, kept in the loop, how agents acting on behalf of humans or humans acting directly are recognized and prioritized over, traffic that I would describe much more as bots or spam. So there's a lot of really interesting places that we can integrate World ID moving forward, and I'm very excited to explore those and push them forward.
Yeah, and I didn't know about the Shopify integration, and that's really good to know. Another interesting use case that impacts me personally was social media. So first of all, because I'm a known character in the industry, right? Like there are multiple fake accounts that on my Instagram, on my X account, they're not me, right? And actually, interestingly enough, I have a TikTok. But my TikTok is not recommended because it's pretending to be someone else. However, that's my account, and I've tried to let TikTok know that that's actually me, and they don't care. So now my account is just not recommended because I am pretending to be somebody else. I'm not Rachel, I'm a bot in their mind. And so it would be really interesting to see a use case where you have the proof of human badge on social media and these platforms recognize it versus that check mark that you have to pay like $1 million a month for.
I agree. I would love to see World ID integrated on social media. That's
so just a suggestion for moving forward.
Now a word from our sponsor.
From on-chain to everyday life. Meet Solaire Pay, the fast and seamless way to spend your crypto in the real world. Manage your balance, move stablecoins instantly, and now spend anywhere where Visa is accepted. Crypto to cash in seconds. One app, one card, global access. Download Solaire Pay now.
I mean, I know, we didn't really talk about this, but your title is developer relations. So, I'm assuming that means you're kind of developing all of these applications, unless I'm wrong.
I do some amount of like building things with World ID, some amount of, writing code for World Chain or like the developer tools around World ID. But I would say my biggest focus now is like helping external parties understand World ID, like how it works, how to integrate it, what types of problems it can help them solve, whether they are like engineers or completely non-technical people.
How would you explain this to someone? And, it's great chatting with you because I know that you're technical, but you can also have a conversation with me that's not technical. So if there was someone, let's just say, for example, my mother, she wanted to use the orb, she wanted to be verified. How would you even explain that to someone that's just completely non-technical?
So it really depends on a lot of factors how I'd explain to them, right? I think just an open and honest conversation, figuring out what they might already understand, right? If they understand what self-custody of data means, right? That makes it a lot easier to explain. But if they don't necessarily understand what that means, it's like, well, this is the data equivalent of keeping your money in cash under the mattress instead of putting it in the bank and trusting the bank to hold it securely, right? If your money's not in the bank and the bank gets robbed, you didn't lose your money because it wasn't in the bank. That's why we keep data on the phones. But explaining the zero knowledge proof aspect as well. It's like, well, you're proving that you are, on a list of verified humans, but you're not revealing which person you are on that list, right? The orb is just checking that you are a human. It's not learning which human you are. It really comes down to having like an open and honest conversation, helping people understand which sort of primitives of our tech really unlock doing this securely and privately. Because when I first heard about World, I didn't know what a zero knowledge proof was. It took a really long conversation with one of my friends who did understand all of that to get me to the point where I could really understand how World ID works. So I have a lot of empathy for, people who might be slightly skeptical of World, just because when you're building bleeding edge technology, people aren't going to be familiar with it.
Yeah, I agree. But in terms of the audience and who your users are that you're targeting, is there a particular user group that you think is very well suited for these use cases?
So I think, especially with like the enterprise use cases like Zoom and DocuSign, it's actually following a somewhat similar path to like the adoption of computers in the first place, right? Computers didn't really start as something that like people had as something they used at home. It started as something that you used in the workplace because it was a very big unlock for, the company you worked for your role. And gradually it expanded to a lot more consumer use cases as well as people were more and more familiar. So, while we do also have like consumer use cases like Tinder and a focus on those, I think the enterprise use cases are going to be like a very big focus of ours, where people will get more familiar with World ID. They will see very clearly like what value it provides, right? Because if you work at a company that uses the Zoom integration for World ID, every time there is some other sort of like set of stolen funds or hack that happens from a deep fake on a video call, that's just another example of like, oh, this is why we're using World ID.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those use cases were so impressive when you see them. At Liftoff, I saw the examples in person, like with Zoom and Tinder and DocuSign. So I do think for enterprise use cases, maybe that's where it starts and then it kind of builds from there.
We're targeting a lot of different angles for integrations of World ID. And we're sort of having a lot of other, types of World ID integrations, come as inbound where we hadn't thought of them, but companies and projects are coming to us and saying, hey, like, we're interested in using World ID. We think it helps us solve this problem that we're facing. So it's really a matter of like breadth on one side. And on the other side, it's like, we know these enterprise use cases are going to be super valuable and we are pushing forward very strongly on those at the same time.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to get your thoughts on AI. I mean, we're seeing an AI boom. We're seeing AI everywhere. I just want to know what your thoughts are on this AI boom and if it's something that we should be fearful of or something that we should embrace.
Yeah. So AI and the route it's taking, getting more and more useful, more and more powerful, more and more prevalent is an amazing thing. But as any new technology, it has some downsides and needs some checks on it, right? If you're someone who's used Twitter or X, right, from like over the past 5 years, you've seen how much, the content you're seeing has shifted. Or it used to be, I saw things from my friends like 95% of the time. Now it feels like I'm seeing things from bots, or at least things that feel AI generated 90 or 95% of the time. So something like World ID, I think, is, in my opinion, the most necessary sort of tool for helping address some of those downsides, and that just creating massive amounts of content, creating fake content, things like deep fakes, right? Those are all bad. We need to prevent those. But by addressing those downsides, we let all of the great use cases of AI really thrive, right? Everything we're seeing with advances in medicine around, drug discovery, around like diagnoses, things we're seeing obviously with like writing code, right? The ability for, anyone who's a software engineer to ship code has gone up tremendously. Things we're seeing around security as well, where these AI tools are really helping with the security of software, right? All of those great use cases shouldn't be held back by the downsides that people are afraid of when you address those downsides, which is what we're here to do.
Right. And I mean, I don't know what you think, but I do think as we progress, AI is only going to get stronger and better, and we will need tools like this in order to kind of combat those deep fakes that we're seeing, the fake social media profiles. So I think this is a really good solution, obviously, to do that.
And I wouldn't say we will need those tools. I think we do.
We do.
Today.
We do. You're right. We do. Are there any other projects out there that are like World or Proof of Humanity? I mean, this is the only orb I have ever seen. Are there any other projects doing something similar?
There are definitely other projects that are doing similar things. I'm not like deeply familiar with their tech stacks in the same way I am with the Orb and World ID, but I do know, having been at World for 3 years and heard a lot of stories from team members who've been there longer than I have, this is not an easy problem to solve. Like, we never wanted to build a hardware device in the first place. It just turns out that this is actually necessary for doing anonymous proof of human at the scale of all of humanity, right? Touch ID and Face ID on your phone are great. They're great for authentication, right? Telling that it's the same person coming back and trying to use the device, but they're nowhere near good enough for proving that you're different from millions or billions of other people.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so Ian, Sam Altman is a co-founder of World, in case our listeners didn't know he is. What has that been like to work for a project that Sam Altman is associated with?
It's a lot of fun, right? Having a name like that definitely unlocks a lot of things for us, right? He's the chairman of Tools for Humanity, which is the primary core contributor to the World project. I'm at the World Foundation, the entity that sort of stewards the project as a whole. So I've never met him personally, but I know he works with the leadership teams very frequently, and is still actively involved in the project.
Mm-hmm. Nice, wonderful. Well, I know we're running low on time, so is there anything that you want to add that we didn't already discuss?
We didn't talk about AgentKit at all.
Oh my gosh, well, let's talk about it.
Right. So as OpenClaw has sort of skyrocketed in usage and into the zeitgeist, right? A lot of people are concerned of oh, well, if this agent is acting on behalf of a human, how do I know? How do I know that that agent isn't actually one of 10,000 agents acting on behalf of whoever it's claiming to act on behalf of? So AgentKit is our tool built on top of World ID to address that. So using World ID, you can prove that this agent actually belongs to a human, right? It gives platforms the ability to sort of distinguish between a bot, right, this ephemeral throwaway online identity, and an agent that is a useful tool extending a human's capabilities. So, for example, when you get rate limited on the internet, or you have to check the CAPTCHA box, right? Using AgentKit, platforms can rate limit me as a human, right? Regardless of if it's 100 agents that are doing this occasionally, or one agent that's doing it very frequently, right? They can put a limit on how much I, as a human, can use that platform, rather than having to ban bots based on the IP address, for example. Mm-hmm. The other thing where AgentKit's really useful is agentic commerce, right? With X402, which AgentKit is actually built on top of, it's really good for platforms to know that this agent's acting on behalf of a human, right? The odds that that payment tries to get, chargeback applied or anything like that, it's a lot lower when an actual human has said yes, this agent is mine. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of really cool things with AgentKit that we're working on. Another one is Human in the Loop that's being developed right now. So for certain important tasks an agent may try to do, or certain high value transactions, can require that the human actually uses World ID to authenticate at that point in time before the agent can proceed. Mm-hmm. So we want to create these tools that let agents really be super, super useful for humans and extend their capabilities massively. But platforms need a way to tell that that is an agent that's actually a tool being used by a human to do good things, and not a bot. Because from the technical perspective, a bot and an agent are fundamentally the exact same thing.
Interesting. I'm really glad you brought that up, because as we enter this age of agentic commerce, right, where agents are transacting with other agents and humans are using an agent to buy them a coffee, right? We need that. And I actually wasn't aware that there was a tool that would kind of keep these agents in check. Interestingly enough, I had this conversation the other day with someone about should there be human in the loop when it comes to agents? Like, should there be humans that are kind of part of that process, right? And there's a debate. I think some people think no, and some people think yes. What are your thoughts?
I think absolutely yes, right? Like in any like corporate job, there's certain things that you go off and do on your own, and there's certain things where you have to get your boss to sign off on it before you actually go do it. Why should it be any different for agents, right? In any situation where there's a sort of autonomous actor that can go off and do things on their own, if you don't have some sort of human in the loop system, eventually they're going to do something that you really wish they hadn't done. So it seems very clear to me that we should have human in the loop. I honestly am not sure what the argument would be against it.
Right, I know. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and also though, when you think about like agents transacting with other agents using stable coins, right? And making trades or trading crypto. And if a human doesn't want to be involved, right? They just want the agent to do all of that on their own and make them money. But I do think it's important as well. I agree with you to have a human in the loop when agents are transacting with other agents. Mistakes can be made.
Right. Like, I don't want my agent to go off and like sign a contract for me without me being in the loop.
Right.
I think it's important that like the user gets to set like what boundaries they want to be brought into the loop for. Right. Maybe that's spending $10, maybe that's spending $1,000, depending on the user. But it's also important for platforms that they can like require human in the loop, right? Because they don't want that agent to put a $10,000 charge on this person's credit card or send $10,000 worth of stable coins in crypto, and the user go, oh, well, that wasn't me. That was just my agent. Can you give me my money back?
Right. But we've seen that already. We've seen those use cases happen, right? Where agents are making trades for users and an agent does something wrong, or a wallet gets hacked because it was all agents. There were no humans in the loop. So I do think having that as like a trust layer, I agree with you 100%, is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a whole different conversation, which we can do a follow-up on. Ian, we are running low on time. So if our listeners want to get in touch with you, are you on X? Are you somewhere where they can reach out to?
Yeah, they can find me on X. It's at 0xpenryn, Penryn. It's just the pseudonym I've used on Twitter and Telegram for a while.
Great. Wonderful. Well, this has been a real pleasure. I'm really looking forward to more developments and updates with World, with Proof of Humanity, with the World Foundation. So looking forward to staying in touch with you and doing a follow-up interview at some point in the future.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you.
Special thanks to 4Labs Digital for producing Deep Dive Podcast. I'd also like to thank the sponsors behind Deep Dive. You can click the links in the show notes to learn more about each of the initiatives from these sponsors. Finally, thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share.